too long, her stories have been buried, and her truth edited by a world that feared her power. You're listening to Sovereign Reality with Natalie. We are here to unearth the goddess, because her story is your story, and her rise is your reclamation. This is about you, authentically and fully you, recognizing your own divinity and stepping back onto your throne. Because the world doesn't need you quiet, babe.
Boss ass bitch. Boss bitch. Boss ass.
Welcome back to Sovereign Reality with Natalie. Today we honor Gula. She's the goddess of healing, herbs, and bones. She teaches us that the first act of medicine is tenderness toward ourselves. Gula shows us that healing isn't just about fixing others. It's about forgiving ourselves, letting go of shame, and speaking gently to the one in the mirror. Gula was known in the ancient lands of Mesopotamia as the healer, the one whose hands mended both body and soul. She walked the streets and temples alike. Her presence was gentle but powerful. She often carried herbs and clay, and she was always accompanied by a dog, which is the symbol of loyalty, protection, and vigilance. Gula's touch wasn't just medicine for the flesh. She was able to see the invisible wounds, the sorrow, the shame, and the grief tucked deep in the heart of people. In fact, people came to her not only to be cured, but to be seen. They came to her to be validated in their pain and to be reminded that their lives and bodies were holy. But as empires rose and shifted, Gula's voice began to fade. Male gods of war and dominance were written into the texts. The wisdom of the healer, of the feminine as a source of power and restoration, was pushed into the margins. Her temples grew quiet, her rituals became obscure, and what was once a central force of community and care was overshadowed by patriarchal structures that equated power with conquest, not compassion. Her silencing is a reflection of how societies often devalue women's work and women's wisdom, teaching that gentleness, intuition, and nurturing are lesser than aggression and control. To honor Gula's energy is to reclaim the radical act of healing oneself and others, to forgive yourself for mistakes, to care for your body without shame, to release the weight of guilt. These are all the ways to walk in her footsteps. Gula teaches that tenderness is sovereignty, that gentleness is strength, and when we choose to embody that, we resist the forces that would have otherwise kept her silent. As I've connected with Gula, I've found her guidance in my own moments of self-criticism and doubt. There have been days when I've been harsh with myself. I'm sure many of you can relate to that. And days when I have felt unworthy. And in those moments, imagining her presence or her unwavering acceptance has reminded me that nurturing oneself is not indulgence. It's absolutely necessary. In this episode, we tie her story to the yogic principle of Ahimsa, or non-harming in thought, word, and action. And though my experience of Gula came much later than my experience of Ahimsa, the message is still the same. So Ahimsa is a core ethical principle in Indian religions, Hinduism, Buddhism, and it means non-violence, non-harming, and compassion toward all living beings in thought, word, and action. It's the first yama, restraint, in yoga philosophy, and emphasizes non-injury to oneself and others. So this yama extends beyond physical violence, and it does include avoiding harm in thoughts, words, and intentions. And the purpose is foundational to reduce suffering, foster inner peace, and cultivate universal compassion. So some examples of ahimsa in daily life might be practicing kindness and forgiveness toward yourself, or others. In yoga, it might show up as being gentle with your body and reducing negative self-talk. In your lifestyle choices, it might be following a vegetarian or vegan diet to avoid harming animals. In actions, it might be in engaging in passive or nonviolent protest, kind of like what, Gandhi did. But for the sake of this episode and tying it into Gula's energy, this energy of healing, when we reflect on this concept of harming and harming ourselves, and we think of ways that we have harmed ourselves, right? And I know so often it can always look like, or when we think of this idea or this concept of self-harm, a lot of times it can show up like physical, right? And of course, this does apply. And I speak as somebody who has tattoos, so, I'm not perfect at this. And I know they say like even tattoos are a form of harming yourself or harming your skin. I personally like the artwork, so forgive me for that. But, there can be physical harm in the foods that you eat, or drinking, or, alcohol, or overconsumption of any number of things, sugar, things that just might be harming your system, And this, again, is not to shame anybody and just throwing out these things, these concepts, these ideas. And so if we're looking at this in terms of Gula's energy, this idea of healing and self-healing, what are some ways that we can physically self-heal? Well, to rectify that, we would maybe consume a healthier diet. Maybe more fruits and vegetables. Maybe it is a vegetarian diet. Maybe it is a vegan diet. I don't know. Sometimes veganism doesn't work for everybody. You've got to find what works for you. And when I think of a diet, and I say this as somebody with a master's degree in complementary and alternative medicine with a holistic nutrition concentration, I think of it in terms of you've got to find what works best for you, what feels best for your body, which is the least non-harming thing for your body. For some people, that is veganism. For some people, that is vegetarianism. For some people, it's pescatarianism. For some people, it's flexitarian. Some people do really well with a wide variety of different meats and vegetables. And, I feel like I'm not alone if I say somebody who's eating fast food day in and day out, every single meal, that's probably not the best for your body. Okay, I'm talking like real fast food, like like McDonald's, every single meal, every single day. I think we could all agree that's probably doing more harm than good. Now, if you're having fast food every so often, but in the main, you eat very well, okay, that's probably not so bad, right? Again, we've got to do what works for us. We've got to do what works best for us. And that's going to look different for every body because every body is different. I'm a firm believer in that. And you have to do the thing that's least harming for you. Ahimsa. Now, self-healing as well. So sometimes we do have to be a bit more extreme in healing foods. Sometimes. I do believe that. I do believe sometimes it's necessary to cut out a lot of different things in order to bring back balance into your body so that you can maybe you have to reintroduce things to just bring some balance back into your system. Because sometimes we can overdo it, your body gets way out of whack, and then you have to bring it back into balance, right? There's just a pendulum, there's a shift with everything. I think it's just a part of being human. But with Gula energy, there's a self-healing, and then again, Ahimsa, non-harming. We do what works best for us in the least harming way. Now let's talk about the non-physical way that Ahimsa shows up, and then Gula's energy. Our thoughts, our words, our judgments, the stories that we have about ourselves, the things that maybe we are saying about others, are they harmful? So, maybe listen to yourself. Like, what are the things that you say to yourself? Again, This isn't about being mean or shaming anybody or making you feel worse than maybe you already do. It's just about bringing some mindfulness here. And, one of the things that I wrote in my book, Girl, You're a Queen. Yeah, I'll probably plug it in every episode, it seems. But you can buy the book on Barnes & Noble. You can buy it on Amazon. It's linked on my website as well. Is if you wouldn't say it to a small child, don't say it to yourself. Okay? I think women are probably the hardest on themselves. I think we are conditioned that way. I think that there's a shift happening, or I'd like to believe that there is a shift happening. But I do believe that women are our own worst critics. I have heard women say some of the most horrific things to themselves. And all I can say to that is your cells are eavesdropping on every single thing you say. Every single thing you think and everything you say. As a self-healer, from Gula's energy, with Gula's energy, one way to fix that, Ahimsa, first do no harm, self-correct. Anytime you want to speak negatively about yourself or think a negative thought about you, even if it comes out, even if you do say it or even if you do think it, see if you can catch it, see if you can stop yourself and correct it. And if it feels hard to do that, amazing. Good. I say that because it's proof that that's where the work is. It shows you that these are some deeply held beliefs that need correction. So maybe today, ask yourself, where am I withholding compassion, and what might it feel like to extend gentleness toward myself instead? Or where am I holding myself in judgment? Because when we can be the most kind to ourselves and the most compassionate to ourselves, it's a whole heck of a lot easier to offer that to others. I'm not saying we're going to be perfect at it. We're human, but I will say it does get a bit easier. And the only other thing I want to mention here is about forgiveness. Because I think forgiveness is a very, very tricky subject. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I know everything there is to know about forgiveness, because I don't. I know that some people are here with some really, really hard lessons, really tough things to have to navigate. So all I can say about forgiveness is that it is definitely a process. It is an ongoing process. I think it always comes down to self-forgiveness, and I'm not saying you as a person did something wrong. Sometimes yes, but sometimes not. More often than not, I think there's always the forgiveness toward others that, it feels the most challenging, right? There's a resentment or something going on there that keeps us kind of stuck in that loop. And though we may not understand why certain things had to happen, I could offer up metaphysical insights all day long. Some people will vibe with it, some people won't. And I'm not here to do that in this episode. But I will say that, and maybe you know already, maybe I'm preaching to the choir, but forgiveness is for you. It is not for the other person. It is always for you. Because the longer you hold on to the anger, the bitterness, it's like the more you drink that poison and expect the other person to die. So finding ways to release the bitterness, the resentment, to forgive, whatever your process may be, is one of the most healing things that you can do for yourself on a physical level, on a mental level, and on a spiritual level. Ahimsa, first do no harm, and Gula, this beautiful goddess of healing. And you can always invoke Gula's energy just by simply asking her to help you find ways to forgive, or help you, if you just need help finding ways to forgive. And if you want a deeper healing practice, you can join me over on YouTube. Of course, if you're listening on YouTube, then you can just join me on my YouTube channel. But I do have a Gula healing ritual. It's a bone rosary mala practice to remove what is not yours. So it is a bone deep clearing ritual guided by the healing goddess Gula, keeper of bones, restorer of truth, and guardian of the body's inner structure. In the video, I use a mala, but you can use a rosary or simply just your voice. We move through 3 cycles of 36 repetitions. So it's a rhythmic cleansing practice designed to strip psychic residue, dissolve distortion, and then return you to sovereign alignment. But we go down through a personal level, collective level, and then we go through an intention of what to clear, and then we go to returning you to right alignment. So something there, if you're curious, if you want to explore it, if you want to just tap into something a little bit deeper with Gula, and then of course your own healing energy as well. And if you're not already on my email list, come join me. Every month I honor a different goddess with a ritual that you can do at home, plus an energetic snapshot of the astrology shaping the month. It's free, it's soulful, and it keeps you connected to the living, breathing feminine current. You can sign up at sovereignsanctuary.space. Until next time, stay sovereign.
Boss ass bitch.
Thank you for walking with me today. Remember, the goddess isn't a myth you're learning, she is a power you are remembering. So go out into the world today and take up your space. Don't filter your truth, and don't apologize for who you are. I'm Natalie, and this is Sovereign Reality. Be bold and be authentically and fully you, because the world doesn't need you quiet, babe.